So everybody, welcome to this webinar on building your own boss. Just looking at the temperature down here, and it's cold, so someone is having some problems. Let me just check what they might be. Thank you, Howard. But it's freezing. All right. It's no good me saying if you can't hear me, type something in the box, is it? Okay, it's got hot. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. I'm recording it, and if people are still having problems, they can listen to the recording. So we have a fair bunch of people on board. Thanks for taking the time to come to this. What I'm going to do is go through this mind map, and the mind map is I guess about an 80% complete content for what will become a WSO, Warrior Special Offer, on this particular topic. And in the course of tomorrow, I'm going to just tidy up the mind map a little bit and then upload it to the members area for the pro members of Internet Professionals. And then you'll be able to use the whole thing and put it into action. So let me, and this is the first of a series of WSOs I'm going to be releasing. They're all going to be linked to the ideas and the principles of Internet Professionals. And I'm going through the material in there actually for the third time. I mean, I've done sort of two rounds of it with updates. This is the third round and from a slightly different perspective. And I'm going to be creating more detailed artifacts and support for a lot of the topics. And this is the very natural starting point. And having created this, and I hope you'll see the sequence of the WSOs that are coming out. When I'm talking about WSOs, I also mean additional or revised content for Internet Professionals. You'll see how they all build on each other. And it almost looks as if there's a plan there. The problem with this is covering the QAs. So every so often I'm going to hop in and see what the questions there are and answer them if it's necessary. Can I see any chat? No. Okay. So what is this about? It is two sections. B.O.S.S, Business Operating System, which is how to do things, and Business Strategy, which is how to decide what things to do. So it's one way of looking at it is like the Business Operating System is like the operating system of a computer. It's your Windows or Linux or Apple operating system. And that's the thing that enables things to happen. But deciding on what actually needs to happen is your business strategy. That's the applications that you run on top of the operating system. That's the way that works. And I'm covering both parts, but focusing specifically on the business operating system part of it. But I do link them together. So that's the big picture, and you'll see how it links to the Internet Professionals Master Agenda and so on in a moment. So let's start with the B.O.S. and how to do things. So part one is action management, and that's where I'm going to spend most of the time. And that's like the theory of action management. I call it action management. It's to-do list management, basically. That's the theory, and then there's specific implementation using a tool called GQueue. That's just a little interlude, and then that's the rest of the B.O.S. Time management, records management, and other things. So we've got action management, which is the core, and then a bunch of other things which all together form the business operating system. And then having gone through that, I'm going to talk about business strategy, which is deciding what you're going to do using your operating system. and a quick scan through there will show you I'm leaning very heavily on the stages of the Internet Professionals Master Agenda. By the way, I know that some of you are familiar with these ideas, that you're members of the Internet Professionals. Some of you may well be new. So forgive me for the new people if I'm using terms you don't understand. It doesn't really matter because I'm going to be explaining everything anyway. So that's the big picture of where we're heading. And I think given the delayed time and also the fact that, as I said, I was going to give two webinars here. I don't think I can record a webinar and then immediately afterwards start another webinar which I'm recording at the same time. And what I was going to do is record one using Camtasia and the other one using Meeting Burner. But I'm reluctant to try that in case anything goes wrong at this point. So I think what I will do, I will go through this and just give one webinar. I won't have the private part of it. But if you want to get access to the mind map, and there's bits of it that I won't show in any detail, just to be fair to the people who are paying, then you will need to register in as Internet Professionals and see the rest of, and get access to it. We'll see how that goes. I may give the second webinar, but and I may or may not be able to record it. But let's see how we get on. So, action management. Oh, and by the way, for those of you that aren't familiar with how I work, what you're looking at here is a standard MindJet mind map. When I put it online, what I do is I put it online in a online format using something called Mindomo. So you'll be able to access the mind map exactly like I am now, open it up and look at different sections and manipulate it. Well, not change it, but access it and open it up and look at the details. Completely online in actually a very nice little tool called mindomo.com if you want to go and take a look at that later. So, excellent. Back to the main agenda. Action management. I'm basing this around GTD. A lot of you will probably have already come across GTD, getting things done. A quick look at any QA. Survey it was late, but it was supposed to start at 6, but I had problems with the audio. Paul, okay, I can't tell you what to do, Paul. You've got to figure that out. Click on the left. Where's my little... There, for people that aren't getting audio. Getting things done. If you haven't come across that, then you definitely should. Remember I mentioned in my emails that when I told my daughter what I was doing, she said, that's exactly what I need. I've got so much stuff going on. She's 24 now. And I realized that this is the sort of thing that anyone by the 18 should have got to grips with, understood the principles of. And there's a book. If you haven't got it, get it, because even though what I'm telling you is based on this, but there is nothing better than reading the book by the author. This has been around for many years. David Allen has put the system together and refined it and built a whole business around the idea. So it's very sophisticated. It is, I have to say, it's a little bit dated in as much as, well, I guess it's dated because it was written before people did 90% of their work on computers, and in fact online. So it's a little bit dated from that point of view in terms of how you organize things. And it is geared more towards people in managerial positions who probably have other people doing most of their stuff for them. But nevertheless, the underlying principles I think are superb, and what I've put together is a way of implementing it which is much more suited to folks like us who spend nearly all their time, their working life is in front of their computer, and they are doing most of the stuff that needs to be done. So, highly recommend that you get that book. I came across a guy, a colleague who's running a business, and we have little sessions, a group of business people, helping each other out with our business issues. And one of his issues was he just didn't know where he was. He was completely swamped with hundreds of little lists to do and missing important things. And my simple solution said, go and read this book. This is the best advice I could give you. And I lent him my copy of the book. I need to get it back off him, actually. So, highly recommended to get that if you haven't got it. If you have got it and you haven't used it, then do so. Do it. And one of the first things you'll read in the introduction is this, or even on the back, I can't remember. Welcome to a gold mine of insights into strategies for how to have more energy, be more relaxed, and get a lot more accomplished with much less effort. Now, that may sound like a bit of a hypey message for what amounts to to-do list management, which is really what it is. Nevertheless, that really is true. You do get more energy because you don't dissipate energy in worrying about things that you've forgotten that needs to be done. You get more relaxed, and you do get a lot more accomplished with less effort. All those things are absolutely true. So if you do nothing, if you log off now and go away, but come away with one lesson, it is buy the book and read it. However, if you hang on, you'll learn even more valuable stuff. The 2-minute overview. So if you know about the system, then please bear with me while I quickly go through the principles for those that don't. And it's very, on the surface of it, it's very straightforward and to some extent quite obvious. First thing is you capture anything and everything that has your attention and concern. As it comes along, you capture it. If you think it might be relevant, you just store it away. And you need a fast way of just capturing that stuff, which is why use of good tools is valuable. Then you define actionable things into concrete next steps and successful outcomes. That's basically the to-do list, but you do it in a particular way. You organize the information in a streamlined way, so there's information organization behind this as well. I'm not going to really focus on that too much, because it's hard to give generic advice to people on that. You just do it as you need to. In fact, I've given as much advice as I can on organizing information, because for your internet marketing organization, I've got my IMI organizer, so I've sort of dealt with that bit of it. But I mean, there's other types of information you need to organize as well, and to a certain degree, you just do that as you need, as suits you. But I'll make a recommendation of a tool to use for that. You keep current and ahead of the game with appropriately frequent reviews. That is absolutely key to the whole thing. It's these reviews and the cycle of reviews that makes this work or not work. I mean, if you don't do the reviews, then it will never work. You keep track of the bigger picture while managing the smaller details. I made either a blog post or an email message to one group, I can't remember, about that exact point. Are you a big picture thinker or are you a detailed person? And people like to sort of categorize themselves into one or the other. Normally they say, I'm a big picture person, I know, I can't be bothered with the details, got to get someone else to do that. To me that's rubbish. You've got to be both. You've got to have the big picture and you've got to get involved in the details. And I think all successful people you'll see are very detail oriented. They get down and they understand the details, but they also have a big picture perspective. And this mechanism really does help you with both of those. And finally, you make trusted choices about what to do in any given moment. So and the difference between this and other systems is you don't go around putting top priority, second priority, third priority to things. You sort of bump them all into various lists. And then you do this review process. And then based on your, how do I put it, just your sense of everything that's going on at a given time, you know in your head what's important. You don't need to tick it. So if you organize all your to-dos properly, you can look at the appropriate list and say, okay, I know what's important and I'll just go and do that thing now, and you just put it off and you do it. So you don't have to tag everything with priority levels, which I found a great relief, because that's the sort of way I used to work before, and it's not really that effective. Oh, good. For Paolo, you've got a result. So, come back. So that's the quick overview. I'm not going to teach you, GTD in this one session. I just want to give you a flavour of it. And there are the principles. Again, I'm not going to go through them. There's these 5 steps. But the mind map has a lot. You can see there's a lot of detailed text behind each of these. Well, so there's quite a lot of detailed reading material. So you will be able to get into it in some detail. I will just make this point about the 5 principles, or the 5 steps: collect, organize, process, review, and do. I got a bit confused, actually, between what you do when you're first setting it up, because there's 2 stages. One is setting up the whole system, and then once it's all set up, how you operate it. And in a sense, these 5 steps, or these 5 principles, sort of muddle up those 2 different stages. So in the text, I've tried to extract that out and explain the difference between the 2. So, for example, the process stage, when you're first setting it up, you've done a lot of collecting. You collect all your stuff from every possible thing that has bothered you, that needs doing. You need a new washer for a tap, or even the smallest thing to the biggest thing of I want to visit Paraguay, or I want to become a Zen monk, whatever it happens to be. You put it all down. You just dump it all down. That's to collect. You only do that once in a big way, and then day to day you collect things as you go through. So collect is very different depending on whether you're first setting it up or whether you're operating it. So anyway, I break that down and explain it, I think, a bit better in the text here. But they're the 5 steps for both setting the whole thing up and for operating it. By the way, those of you that have been around in internet marketing long enough may remember John Reese, one of the top and highly respected internet marketers. He, not quite sure what's happened to him. He's gone off the radar. I think he went off for traveling at one point. But I remember an email that came through, and I looked at it, and he just mentioned a technique that he had found hugely valuable in helping him sort out his life. And how persuasive these marketers are. He was very, very adamant about how valuable this thing was, and he said, if you do nothing else, just follow my instructions I'm going to tell you now. He wasn't charging for it, he just gave it away. And effectively what he was saying was what's in this collect stage. He was saying, just get a piece of paper and write down everything that you've ever wanted to do, or that's bothering you, that's been on your agenda in some sense. Just dump it all down. And then he had some way of processing it and doing it, and it's very cathartic and sort of frees you from this burden that's always over your head of feeling guilty about things that you think you should be doing, but you don't know, you've half forgotten that you should be doing them. If you get it all out and you dump it into the right lists, then all that guilt just goes away, and you refine it down so that you know exactly what you're supposed to be doing on this day, because you've looked at the big picture, you've thrown away all the things you can't do today or that aren't that relevant, and you come down with a list of things you need to do today, and then you can forget about everything else and focus on exactly what needs to be done in the moment. That's the thing. So John, I don't know where he read it, but he'd hit on the same sort of thing as the collect phase in setting up a GTD system. So when I read this in GTD, it reminded me exactly of what John had said. I thought it was pretty good. Then there are the tools for implementing GTD. I spent, this is at the end of last year, the beginning of this year, I spent weeks trying out different tools. And there's some generic tools that are generic organizational tools. There are some now that have been developed specifically for implementing GTD. And you too could spend weeks looking around and hunting for the right tool. And any tool that is in any sense an organizational tool, they will almost always say, and you can use this for implementing GTD. And they may or may not give you some hints as to how you can use it for implementing GTD. Now, one example of that is Evernote. So Evernote I also mention here as a tool, not for organizing the tasks, but for organizing information. If you haven't got it, get it. It's free, unless you're going to be storing gigabytes of information, in which case they do charge a little bit. I mean, their business model is amazing. They must have millions of users. You can store stuff on your laptop, on your mobile device. It synchronizes it offline in the clouds. It has an unbelievably good search facility. All millions of wonderful features. It's all free. But you can contribute if you want to, and people do, and I do. I've set up a small standing order because the damn thing is so good, and the guys that set it up have such a wonderful business model that it's worth paying a bit for. But if you can't afford it, then don't pay, but use it. It really is transformative. So use that for your organizing, or part of your organizing. But also you will find people saying, I use Evernote for the whole of GTD. And you sort of can. It's a bit clunky, but you can do it for that. I tried it and decided against it. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I hunted around and I finally decided on a tool called GQueue. There it is. Not going to go through my specific one in detail, but it's there. It works remarkably well. No, where are we? Where's my? There we are. And one thing that I looked for in particular was integration with Google Calendar. That's one of the criteria. And GQueue's, the guy that's put it together, he has done the whole thing with a Google sort of look and feel to the whole thing. Even his help system uses the Google help look and feel. So he's very consciously made it look like almost a Google add-on, and integrates beautifully with Google Calendars. So that's one reason that I chose that. So the tools is a to-do list manager, for which I recommend GQueue. A calendar, well, we would say why not use Google Calendar? There's absolutely no reason not to. The reference information is, as I mentioned, Evernote, and of course iMyOrganizer, which is the Internet Marketing Reference. Oh, sorry, I should have expanded this one more. Oh no, I haven't, not that one. Okay. Something else. Then the other element is projects. How much to explain here? Yeah, in getting things done, the principle of an action is something that you can do straight away. So it would be, an action would be find a supplier of ink cartridges. So if I want to buy an ink cartridge for my printer and I've not done it before, for example, the action isn't buy an ink cartridge. It becomes a project. Now, it's a trivial project, but in GTD terms, it's a project. The project is buy ink cartridge. And the next action is find supplier. So, you know exactly what you do. You're going to find a supplier. Once you've found a supplier, then you make the purchase. Now, that might be a bit trivial, but that's the sort of principle, is that you break things down into definite, concrete, actionable steps. And those things together are called a project. Now, the word project has so many different meanings. I try to make it clear between them. So that I describe here projects and actions, the distinction there. But one of the things that you create in your organizational section is a project list, and that's key. So you've got an action list and a project list. Now, you could choose to have them separate, or you could choose to merge them a little bit, but conceptually they are different things. You have projects and you have actions. That's important to know for what I'm going to say next. We've got projects and actions, remember that. So that's action management. It's basically built on GTD. Now, you can go off and you can do your own thing with GTD. You can find a tool. You can implement it yourself. I warn you, it will take you, well, it took me several weeks before I found a system that I was happy with. Or you can get access to this and see exactly how I have implemented GQueues. This is, again, just for the task management. And the way I've put it together is based on this little model, which is sort of a slight refinement of what Dave Allen's got. So, all the stuff in my life is divided into stuff to do, and there's two sections. There's the someday maybe, stuff that is, you're going to do it, you want to do at some point, or maybe you'll do. You don't throw it away, you just store it somewhere. And the review process makes sure you never forget about it. And what I call my agenda, which is the blue side. But my agenda is split into two things. There's my general agenda, and then the stuff I need to do today. So the blue stuff is things that I've got some sort of, I expect to schedule at some point. I need to be more actively aware of it than the someday maybe. And every day I need to say, okay, and what I need to do today is, and that's the stuff to do today. Then I also have appointments, which is stuff that needs to be done on particular days, so that it's, the scheduling isn't an issue because it's already been done. And there's the reference stuff. So these isn't things to do, but this is the backup material, if you like, that's going to help me with this, with the stuff to do. And ultimately, what we're trying to achieve is, out of all this material, to work out what today's agenda is. So we want a way of gathering and organizing all this stuff in the stuff to do and reviewing it, so that at the beginning of each day, it will take us 5 minutes to look at a couple of lists and come up with what we need to do today. And then that's it. Then the job's done, and then what we do is we pick up the tasks from that list and do them. And that includes stuff to do and today's appointments, obviously. It's got to be on today's agenda. So that is the whole goal. The whole goal is as I said earlier on, to funnel all this stuff, which can be massive, the someday maybe and the my agenda can be quite big, to have ways of tagging and organizing and making sure that nothing is lost as we go through the day and new stuff, new inputs come into us, organizing it all so that we can really efficiently, and review processes, critical review processes, do all this so that at the beginning of the day we can very efficiently work out what today's agenda is. That's the whole game plan. And that, with that in mind, I put together my system, which I've documented here. I'm not going to go through this, but there's sort of an overview of GQueues, what you can do, concepts, screen layout. It's changed slightly. The guy's updating it all the time, which is good. He just made it secure, so it's an HTTPS URL now, so everything is secure. You can assign tasks to other people as well. They can assign tasks to you, so it's good for collaborative work. Lots of great stuff. Oh, by the way, it's free, but if you want Google integration, I think it's $25 a year. So there is a small charge, because I mean, without the Google integration, it's not that valuable. But it's $25 a year, so it's really not too much. So I explained basically step by step exactly how to set the whole thing up, what queues to create, even what colors I use for. You don't have to use those colors, but it's good to have colors that differentiate the different types of queues and the tags and everything. So I really have given very detailed step-by-step guide, and I've given also this reviewing and processing, which is absolutely critical. The daily reviews and everything else, weekly reviews. And what I recommend is that, you'll see, it's all written down in the guidance, is implementing it exactly as I've said, following it for a bit, and then inevitably you're going to say, well, I don't quite like that, I've got a better way of doing it, this is more important to me, whatever it is. And then adjusting it. And you can copy and paste the reviewing process and adjust that to suit how you want to do your reviews. You may not want to do them the same frequencies that I've suggested, and you may have different tags and lists and so on. So document your review process so that it becomes your own. But start with what I've got, because it works really well, and it works really well for for people like us who are working online pretty much all the time. But inevitably you're going to want to amend it. Sorry, why it took you so long to get sound. What was the program I was talking about? I'll give a list of all the tools that I've referenced towards the end. And I'll send that information out anyway. But basically it was GQueue.com and Evernote. They're the two tools I've mentioned. GQueue.com and Evernote. Now, it's going to take you a while to set this up, particularly if you follow the principles in the book, and do get the book. I mean, the book also talks about physical filing. So I've transformed my physical filing system. I cleared my desk out, my pile of stuff that was sitting there, gathering. Really just, it's very cathartic. It does take some time and it's quite distracting to do, but once you've done it, then you really are raring to go. And it just changes the way you go about everything. And I'm going to be assuming in the rest of this document that you've done that, because the guidance that I give in the rest of this is going to be pretty much add an action to your to-do list, add the project to your project list. So what has always sort of bothered me, just because of the way I think, I guess, when reading through any guidance material or advice from anywhere, is, I'm reading this now, I think, that's really good. I must remember to, or I should be, and you think, will I remember to do this? Am I going to forget this useful piece of information, or am I going to forget that I had this whole plan to do X, whatever it happens to be. When you're reading something useful, so often we read it and then we put it to one side, and we never go back and do anything that it said. So I don't want you guys to do that with my material, or with anyone's material, but particularly with mine. So I'm recommending you set up systems like this. And the guidance I give is going to say, stick an action on your to-do list, so you don't lose. I've just said this is something you need to do. So you can't do it right now, but add an action on your to-do list, or if it's a bit bigger than that, stick a project on your project list. And then, if you're doing it properly during your review process of everything in your, all the stuff in your world, you're going to come across that and say, oh yes, that's a project. do I need to do that now? Should I do that now, or should I postpone it? And if you postpone it, that's fine. It's still on your list. You've not lost it. And one day you might put it off and do it. But the point is, as you're going through reading guidance, either mine or anybody else's, you don't lose those useful gems. You've got a very quick and easy way to capture it. That's what the whole thing was about at the beginning, if you remember. Capture anything and everything that has your attention and concern, right? So, as I'm going through this stuff, I will be coming up with stuff which I hope will capture your attention and concern, and I will very explicitly tell you what to capture so that you don't lose it. Okay. So that's the key. That's the wonder of setting this up, and that's the benefit that you're going to gain. One of the benefits you're going to gain from the not insignificant effort that needs to go into this. But really, it is everything Dave Allen said about it at the beginning, about more energy and less time and all the rest of it, and efficiency, is absolutely true. So that's part one, action management. Part two is other elements of the B.O.S.S. And again, if you're familiar with the IPMA material, these are well, part of the asserting stage and or their disciplines in the IPMA. But they all form part of the business operating system. So time management. There's a bit to do about time management. And what I say here, so you'll see under each of these, what I give a bit of it, that's not a particularly good example. Let me find a better example. Records management. Well, I say a little bit about records management. I give a link to where I talk about it in the Internet Professional's site. But then on here, what do I say? Add a project to your project list. Your project is set up a records management system. Pretty simple. You can also add notes. So when you, with GQueues as well, you can add notes to tasks that you set up. So what I would recommend, you just set up your project, copy and paste these notes, and then when you go back to this project and want to set it up, you've got all this material ready for you to use. And obviously, the recommendation would be to go to Internet Professional's site, because I've said quite a lot about that already. So I've got a lot of sort of background material for you when you decide to do that project. But the key point is to add it to your projects list. So these are the other elements of the B.O.S.S, and let me say, records management is going to come out as a WSO. I think the next one, I keep chopping and changing the order I'm going to do things, but I think I'm going to just do them in the right order. This one is going to be the next WSO, just because it is so fundamental. Then the next is going to be records management, which is not the most exciting, but it's a really important part of the jigsaw. And the one after that is process management, which in terms of exciting and useful, I think is a close second to the B.O.S.S. I've started using actually Excel spreadsheets in a particular way for managing my processes, and it's made a huge difference to the way I work. So I'm really keen to bring that out as a WSO. I'm still refining it a bit as I use it, but it's getting close to completion. So that would come out as a WSO, and so will email management. I've got a lot to say about that, because that is the biggest distractions and that we all suffer from. So that's the next sequence of WSOs that are coming out. So I recommend, although I list down here that these are things you should do, you might. Time management is pretty straightforward. There's one tool I recommend, which is Action Machine Pro. Do use that. The rest of this stuff, I would wait until I bring out my WSOs, to be honest. Or, well, even before I bring out the WSOs, I'm going to make whatever material I can available to you through these webinars. So you'll get access to this, more information about these topics on the forthcoming webinars. So stay tuned, as they say. Then, okay, so that's it for the business operating system. That's the how. Then the next is the what. And here, quite unashamedly, I've just used or reused material from the Internet Professional's Master Agenda, and in particular the stages. So what are we trying to achieve here? Well, the business operating system is a way of managing your actions, the things on the to-do list. But the point is, how does stuff get on your to-do list? How do you decide what it is that gets on your to-do list? And how can you make sure they're the right ones? So the goal of all this is a systematic way, as far as possible, to create a business strategy and use the strategy. I don't know whether you can you read that okay? Use the strategy to derive the actions and the projects that go into your business operating system so that you can run or create a business as efficiently as possible. That's the goal of this section. And I've used the same mechanisms I did above. If I just jump down to here, for example, the learning stage. I talk about the learning stage and then list the taskers for learning. So as far as if you are at the learning stage and you need to decide what stage you're at, and I give guidance as to how to do that, then if you are at the learning stage, here's your task list. Add an action to your to-do list. List the competencies I need to develop. Add a project to your project list. Identify 2 to 3 simple business models to follow as part of my training. Add an action to the to-do list. Schedule a recurring action to spend time on the IMI forums. Add an action to the to-do list. Create a business models list. So, if you're familiar with my stage model, and you may have, if you're a full member, you've obviously seen all the information. Maybe you've been an induction member and gone through the induction course. I describe what happens at each of these stages. As a full member, you've got an hour's webinar and sometimes several hours webinars on each of these stages. What I've done here is try to identify the very specific tasks that you need to do at each of the stages. So it's more information that you got on the induction course, but less information than appears in all the webinars. But it's the actionable bit. It's the real actionable part of each of the stages. Although I do quite a bit of background description about each of the stages as well. So this, I think, is quite a nice, slightly shorter and actionable form of the whole Master Agenda program. If you're not familiar with the Master Agenda program, the key point is this: most people think they're running an internet marketing business, but most people aren't. If you're running an internet marketing business, you're at stage 7, the operating stage. Very few people, well, not very few people, but fewer people than they think are actually at that stage. Most people are still floundering around in these stages 1 to 6, trying to decide what their business model should be, learning internet marketing, switching business model. They haven't settled down yet. And I give a detailed stage process of how to go about deciding what stage you're in, and I give some quite detailed advice on how to decide what stage you're in, then choose a business model, and then go through implementing it, and then finally come out at the operating stage. So the first step is to decide where you are in this process. Do you have are you in the operating stage or not? And I give some advice on how to decide that. Do you have an operational business? Are you just setting up a business? And so on. Again, can't go through all that now, but that is a really good summary of the whole of IPMA. So, folks, we've just hit the hour, and I think I've done the job I wanted to do, of given, I hope, some useful information, free information to people who aren't Pro members. And if you are a Pro member, I hope I've given you a good overview of what you can get at and the value of implementing a B.O.S.S for yourself. So that's what I want to say. We'll take QA. If people have got questions, I'm very happy to stay on and answer them. Okay, Adam says, by releasing these as fantastic WSOs, aren't I undermining the need to join the full membership program? No, because you don't get the full detail of the full membership gives all the background. There's a lot of material in the members area which isn't there in the WSOs. Or, well, I mean, it will be if you buy the WSOs and wait for about 18 months until I've gone through the whole thing. But you know, if you're willing to wait 18 months, you can just sit back and buy the WSOs as they come out. But the main material is in the members area for sure. Let me see, someone's given. Oh, right. Arvinder mentioned to me. Oh, Arvinder, hello. I haven't heard from you for ages. GTD does give their approach to GQ. GQs do have their approach to GTD. Yes, I mentioned that. I didn't mention it in the webinar, but I do mention it on the mind map. I looked at that and I didn't like it at all. To be honest, I don't actually believe that the guy is using that process. Why didn't I like it? I can't remember why I didn't like it. Something to do with the way he used projects. But yes, you can look at how the GTD guy himself, the GQ guy himself mentions how to use GTD, but I didn't like it. I rejected it. But the links are .com and if you want to see their GTD approach, compare it with mine. Also, there we are. Oops. Evernote, really, just get it. don't think about it. It is so good. It's got speech recognition. You can attach videos. You can do so much with it. And the search mechanism is great. You can tag things. It's got quite a good tagging mechanism. But you can almost get anything you want just by their superb search. Right. Any other points or questions anyone has? I'm not going to go, unless anyone has detailed questions about the implementation of GQs. I'm not going to have the private session, I think, at least not now. I think maybe what I'll do, I'll put the mind map up, give people a chance to look at it. And then, maybe have a session just for members when they've had a chance to look at the map. James says, at what stage would you set up a business structure? Oh, set up a corporation or LLC, get account. Well, I wouldn't bother with that until you're at the operating stage. Well, no. I don't know about setting up a corporation or LLC. I mean, I'm still a sole proprietor. I haven't seen any benefit in setting up a limited company. But certainly, as soon as you start having expenses, it's worth getting, making sure that you're getting the tax benefit of being self-employed. So, in that sense, right from the word go, actually, I should like to go back on what I said. Right from the beginning, there's really good tax benefits for running a company. So you might as well do that right at the early stages. Paying for an accountant, well, I can't, that's up to you. I mean, it just depends on how complex your accounts are and whether you're going to get anything back from, whether it could be financially beneficial for paying for an accountant, or whether you can just keep your own records. I mean, at the moment, I just keep my own records. I mean, I've been in business for quite a long time, and it's all very straightforward. I just do my tax returns, and it's very straightforward. I haven't seen the need for an accountant at the moment. I probably will later on, but I haven't found the need for it. But that's different for different people. Okay. If we're done, we'll close off and let us Europeans get some shut-eye. Good. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for your time. I will let you know if I do a private webinar to go through the GQueue's implementation in particular, because I think that's the most critical part. If once people have seen that online, then get in touch with me and say, if you specifically want me to go through that as a webinar, I'll do that. What I plan to do, by the way, I should say, what I plan to do when I release it as WSO is create videos, a whole series of videos, which usually is better than the webinars because you can just look at, a 6-minute or 8-minute video to see a little section rather than sitting through an hour's chat or half an hour trying to get the sound right. So that might be the better solution, is just for me to create some videos and then have a session for QA if people have questions. Good. We'll call it a day. I shall stop recording and leave it at that. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.